Are you ready for a man to over-enthusiastically talk about a candle for 15 minutes? Well, if so, you've come to the right place because I'm here to redo the candle tutorial that I've done before, this time with new features like, well, first of all, it looks realistic, that's one thing, but I've added new features like the candle flame is going to be animated. We're going to be doing that with the texture coordinate manipulation with noise and stuff like that. Also, candle flame's always going to face the camera and stuff like this. This is what candle tutorial was always meant to be. So let's talk about sculpting the thing, making the flame and making it look realistic. Either way, I'm going to be using Blender version, I guess 2.93, even though I've been using 3.0 recently. I guess I just opened the wrong one. Either way, here's how you make a candle with whatever version of Blender you are using. Do it the cube. Instead of a cube, add a object that looks more like a cylinder. What object tends to do that? A cylinder. Wait, did I just say cylinder? I meant candle. Add in a cylinder. Make sure the cylinder has a lot of geometry because we don't want to see any facetting. I want it to look, nice and smooth radially as we go around. Take this thing, scale it on everything except the Z-axis so it's a bit skinnier. I think this time I'm going to be making a skinny candle instead of like a thick-ass boy found on Pornhub style candle. Just a nice skinny candle. Make a cylinder, bevel the top, make it look something like that. You're pretty much done. Rest of this is going to be in sculpting. So, sculpting workspace. I don't really know much about sculpting, to be honest, which is almost perfect because I don't expect you to either. Here's the basic thing with sculpting. Before you do anything, if you start sculpting, you're going to see there's like weird stuff going on. It's because there's not a lot of geometry except at the top. So what you want to do is you want to go to remesh. This is going to remesh the mesh and add in geometry. You want to remesh it, and if it looks too low res, undo it and make the density of the voxels, denser. And now you have a nicely distributed mesh. To make it look like a candle, I take the clay strips, and in case you don't know, F is brush size, control. So if you click, it does this. If you hold control, it goes inwards. Hold control and eat into the candle as if the wax kind of melted away. Just think about how a candle would be made as the construction goes on outside. How a candle would work in the real world, okay? So we eat into it. We also do a bit of inflation around it, kind of like the puffy wax in the areas where the wax didn't go down, so it's all going to be streaming down here, and I guess collecting down here, so, make it look like that. And just do whatever makes sense every once in a while, remesh it so we get more geometry to work with. And also, I'd recommend doing clay strips in the normal way, non-inverted, to have the collection of some wax, make it look good. Okay, that's the basics of it. Take it, smooth it, not that much, smooth it by 0.3, something like that. And a quick trick I learned, by the way, if you want the base to be more square and flat, like it's actually resting on a surface instead of what it's doing now. It turns out there's a sculpt tool for that. It's called Box Trim. You just take the box and you draw it, and Blender is going to take forever to calculate. And then you see we have a flat bottom. Okay? Other than this, just minor details. I'm also going to add in some stuff with the normal mapping. I like to take the inflate brush and just kind of draw in some drops. I'm just going to remesh this. I like to draw in some drops, and this is something that's done with a higher strength, as if the wax is actually streaming down here. So this is actually a geometry detail that I think actually adds a bit of something, to be honest. If anything, this is one of the things that sells the realism. So again, at the top, make it nice and puffy, as if nothing is willing to go down. Make some more drops. Maybe one of these could be almost melting, but not quite. And then also have some stuff collecting over here. Perfect. Take it, smooth it again, and I think that's it for the sculpting of the candle. Maybe just a very slight smoothing to make it less intense. But I think that's good. So back in the layout workspace, take it, make it shade smooth. That's going to make it look not like garbage. So before, after, shade smooth is an important part of it. And now we're done with the sculpting part. So let's save that out. I'm going to call this candle available. You already know it's coming on Patreon, okay? Blend in the description for the Patreon, whatever. You don't need it. Let me show you the rest of the process. This tutorial is all over the place. I apologize for that. We've sculpted a candle. Now let's make the wick, and let's make the candle flame on top of it, and then we can talk about subsurface and materials and all this. So for the wick, you could either, kind of distort a cylinder, model it out that way, or kind of a more procedural, easy approach, you add in a curve. This Bezier curve is basically going to dictate, once I orient it correctly, it's basically going to dictate where the wick is the way you want to think about it. So just kind of scale it down, position it towards like the front middle of the candle, where like the lowest point of it is. Do that, and then go into edit mode, move stuff down, scale it, whatever, you have a wick. To make it actually have depth, you go to the curve settings, you go to geometry, and you say, oh, I want depth, so you increase the depth, and you actually do it instead of just saying that you're going to do it. There we go. So we have the thing, we have the wick, and now kind of the most complicated part, let's talk about the flame. What I am going to do for this, I've already downloaded a PNG of a candle flame off Google Images. How do you get one yourself? Google Images, you don't need to photograph anything, just make sure it's a transparent PNG. I'm going to add in a plane. In the material workspace, this is going to be our flame material. And I don't need a BSDF for this. I just want to load in the image texture. So you can see somewhere on the desktop, we have a candle flame. Perfect. Let's view it. Looks pretty good. So what I want to do with this is, first of all, I'm going to position it where it's supposed to be, and then we're going to make it emissive, transparent, the whole nine. So it should be roughly that big, and it should be closer to the actual wick. By the way, if you've never used like a two-dimensional kind of sprite for something like that, common practice, we're just going to make it rotate to face the camera. We don't actually need it to be a volumetric thing. If anything, this calculates 1,000 times faster and almost looks more realistic anyways. Okay, we've positioned the thing. One thing I would recommend if you haven't done it already, so object, origin to geometry, you just want to make sure, I don't know why we can't see origins, you just want to make sure that the origin is kind of like at the base of the flame, kind of like where it touches the wick, because when we rotate it, we want it to be kind of like off there. What you want to make sure is, again, this is a PNG. So we have the color, and we also have an alpha channel kind of dictating where's their flame and where's their background, okay? To make this a nice material, I'm going to use Cycle, since that's what we are going to render in kind of like finally anyways. Let's get rid of that light. Our lighting is garbage here. To make it look good, what you're going to do is you're going to add in a transparent BSDF, because part of it's supposed to be transparent, and the flame part of it is supposed to be emissive. So take both of these, mix them together. How should you mix them? Using this alpha, because that says where one is emissive and where one is transparent. And now you can see we got a flame. It's loud out there. The candle flame is the wrong color, so take the color, connect it to the emission, and actually do it. I don't know why I'm misclicking all the time. And that's going to make it look legit. You want to increase the strength quite a bit, but maybe not so much. And that's going to give you the nice candle flame look. By the way, before we move on to making the thing flicker, let's give this wax a nice waxy material. So with the wax, make it kind of yellowish orange, and also increase the subsurface. This is the most important part. This is what's going to let the light bleed through. So I'm just going to dip the background just so we can see what's going on here. So subsurface it's going to let us calculate the light passing through the medium. But to actually see it, I'm going to enable some viewport denoising so we can actually see what's going on. I like to take the subsurface and make it kind of orange. It's not physically correct, but it works. And the way this whole system works is the brighter this is, kind of the deeper it's going to seep into the medium. So if we were to go crazy with it, you can see it's shining very intensely into the candle. That just kind of depends on what you want for your scene. So I'm just going to keep it at something like this. And you can also give your wick like a brownish, ropey color, but I'm just going to skip that part for now. Okay, so we have our basic thing. Now let's make the candle dance, and I'm going to do look dev for this, just for the viewport. And then we're going to go back to rendered mode. So the trick behind this is we are using texture coordinates to project the image, which is then processing BSDF information, right? But because all of this is dependent on the coordinates, all of this leads to all of this. If we modify the coordinates, it looks like the candle's moving. And the key insight is we just want to distort the texture space. Basic way to do this is you take a noise texture. This is a source of randomness. It's going to randomize our texture coordinates a bit, okay? We're going to connect this to UV, so we have UV coordinates, the standard one it's using, and also this distorted coordinate system. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the two of them. So take this, make sure to set it to linear light. I could explain why, but is it worth your time? I don't know. Set it to linear light. This is going to make it so that the distortion is kind of centered instead of what happens with mix, where the more you increase it, kind of the crazier it gets. So linear light kind of preserves the center with this. You're going to do this. This is going to distort the coordinates, and now we just want to have it less intense. So I'm going to bring down the detail, just so it's kind of like low resolution kind of distortion. So this is high resolution, low resolution, something like 0.8. And also bring down the scale, so it's low frequency detail, so you can kind of choose what you want to go on here. You do all this, you choose your quality of distortion. Do you want it to be a fast moving candle, slow? And then you're going to go to 4-dimensional noise, which is going to give you this W slider, aka the evolution slider. I do think we should bump up the detail a tiny bit, because we are getting a bit too much distortion. And increase this. I just want I want the whole thing to animate, but I want the wick to stay stationary. Either way, as you move the seed, you can see this flame flickers. So if we type in a driver, so this is hash frame, it's going to give us the frame number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? You take this, you divide it by a big number, so it evolves more slowly. You can see we got a thing. Although it is quite bad. So let's move some stuff until it looks better. So I guess a bit more detail, a bit more scale, but maybe not so much, is just going to make it look a bit more centered. And the further away you look, the better this thing is. So let's see what this looks like in rendered. So we have a candle flame, and you can see kind of in the viewport it's evolving and looks like it's doing a thing. Again, important note, this linear light slider is basically saying how much distortion do you want. So what we can do is just cut down the distortion a tiny bit, just so it has a bit less of an effect. And again, this thing looks much better when you're not like 100% zoomed in on it. Okay, so we got the candle flame, it's evolving. We've got the wax. Now let's just add in a couple free details. So for the environment, I'm going to use an HDRI just so we actually get like a various lighting and stuff like that. So I guess this one's going to be in an old factory. And I'm going to take this HDRI, bring down the strength. Beautiful. So most of the light is coming from the actual candle flame. But we also have the environment lighting, just making it not look absolutely dark and black. This is good because if we want to add in some extra detail, like normal detail, now we're actually going to be able to see it. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I don't know why noise automatically makes default onto white noise now. I feel like they changed like the dictionary lookup or something like that. Noise texture, take it. Increase the scale until you have kind of like finer detail. I'm going to use this to get free like... Oh, I'm sorry about the background noise. I'm going to use it to get free detail on the normal. So bump converts this into normal information, connect it, look at it, it's beautiful, and bring down the strength so it doesn't look so insane. But this just makes the wax not look perfectly smooth, but there's actually a bit of a distortion going on and stuff like that. And let's wrap up before this saw noise gets louder and louder. So we have the wax, we have the candle. One issue is, again, this thing is a 2D sprite, so if I was to look at it from the side, it kind of looks stupid. So what we need to do is kind of have this flame always like moving with us. So like if we're here off to the side and we rotate this flame, there's no issue, right? The issue only comes from the two-dimensionality of it, so we can rotate it. And this way we can trick and make it look like it's a volumetric. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the camera. Basically, I'm going to have this thing face the camera instead of just a random spot in the viewport. That way we can control this nicely. So let's like look at it from the side where it's not working. The way we do this is we take the plane. We want to alter the Z location, rotation. So to do that, you go to constraints. You add in, let's do this in LookDev. You add what kind of constraint? You add in a damped track. Track means follow it, and damped means I don't know. But this is the one you use. So you target the camera, so it's always going to be rotating on the camera, and then you pick the axis that makes sense. In this case, it's Z. And you can see now it's rotating with it, although it's also moving on some other axes, so we need to fix that. But you can see in essence it's working. So the issue here, if we look at the flame, it's actually moving our X rotation, which is supposed to be locked at 90. So we just need to lock that and make sure it's only Z that's rotating. So now you add another constraint. After it's doing its rotation, we want to say do that, but then don't fuck with my X and Y rotation. So you go to limit rotation, so we limit it. We want to limit X so it's not moving, and we want to fix it at 90. And this should work, although I guess we should also limit Y so it doesn't do any of that. And now we got it working. I mean, there's this issue once you pass 180 degrees, it does a flip, but hopefully you're not doing a shot where you go 180 degrees around a candle. That's pretty fucking weird. Like, this thing's just going to be on a table somewhere. At most, you're going 10 degrees around. Although I do think there is a driver trick you could do to fix that, or maybe some other trick. But either way, now you can see this is following it, and it's always going to be animated doing our thing because it's local to the UV space, so it doesn't matter if it's rotating. And you can see it's rotating, it works, and now you have a candle. It's cool. What you can do with this, by the way, is if you want multiple candles, you just duplicate this thing with the flame. And if you want each candle to be animating slightly differently so they're not 100% in sync. By the way, this thing doesn't follow the viewport, it just follows the camera, so make sure you're looking through the camera view. If you want the distortion to be a bit different for each object, again, you just add an object info, use this random thing, which gives a different value for each object. And then you just add it to the W slider, and that's just going to give it a bit of an offset. But other than that, that's the essence of the candle. How you make the materials, how you model. I haven't done sculpting in a while. How to do the distortion and all that. So hopefully you learned something in this tutorial. How long did we go for? 15 minutes. That's what I said. I said I'd ramble for 15 minutes about candles. Anyways, thank you for watching the tutorial. What's this to the side? Is it a list of 750 light sources or... I don't know, samples that I'm using to render the subsurf? No, it's a list of 750 patrons that are getting access to the blend files. You don't need to make this yourself. You can get 2 years worth of blend files very easily. There's a link in the description. Also, early access to tutorials, which is actually more meaningful than it normally is, because for the next 2 weeks, very soon, I'm going to be walking across Massachusetts, as you know, some bulk recording tutorials, so you could watch tutorials as updated. You could watch 2 weeks ahead, in this case, pretty soon, as I'm bulk recording these, because I need to record them all before I leave. I didn't even consider it, so now I'm kind of scrambling. You get access to all these things, exclusive tutorials, stuff like this, so check out Patreon if you care. If you don't care, you've already clicked off. So there you go. Hopefully you learned something about candles. Thanks for watching. See ya, Blender boys. Peace.